So let's talk about a paradox that I think a lot of really high-performing people listening will recognize. You're a master of your craft. You might be, a top-tier QS consultant, maybe a brilliant financial strategist. You're basically at the very top of your game.
Absolutely exceptional at the actual work,
Yeah.
the skill.
Exactly. And yet, when you look at the business side of things, the actual day-to-day operations, it just feels impossibly hard, like a relentless daily grind.
That feeling is the key signal. It really is. It's this ultimate frustrating contradiction for high achievers. And the question that bubbles up is always, why? Why doesn't my skill, the thing clients happily pay top dollar for, automatically make running the business easy?
Why is the engine so powerful, but the whole thing feels like it's about to fall apart?
Exactly.
And that's the core tension we need to get into today. For this analysis, we're really getting straight to the point for you, the listener, who needs that rapid, high-value knowledge on how to get some control back. We're tackling that essential shift that can take successful six-figure freelancers from just surviving their business to, actually controlling its growth. We've gone through the material you shared, which focuses heavily on these high-performing consultancies, and we're going to break it all down.
We'll look at the diagnosis, the agonizing symptoms, and then the actual precise prescription for getting that control.
And we have to start with what the sources identify as the central conflict.
We absolutely must. It's foundational for anyone who feels stuck in that exhausting, effort-based hamster wheel. The material argues that the fundamental problem for these highly skilled professionals, even when they're really profitable, is not a lack of commercial skill. It's a critical lack of systems.
So it's not your brain. It's not your ability to make money. It's the scaffolding, the operational structure underneath it all.
That's it.
Okay, let's unpack that right now, starting with that unexpected reality and the kind of seductive nature of what you might call the effort trap, the idea that your business is harder than it should be. I mean, that's so frustrating because it hits right at the ego of an expert, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
If you know you're world-class in your field, like the QS consultant who can spot every single risk in a tender document, you just naturally assume any friction must be because you need to work harder. Or maybe the market's just chaotic.
It's the expert's default assumption. I'm competent, therefore my business should just run competently. But the reality, and the material is really clear on this, is that you can have 20 years of expertise and still be caught in that exact cycle.
Yeah.
That phrase, harder than it should be, it perfectly sums up the road to high earner burnout. The money's there, clients are happy, but the administrative weight of it all feels astronomical. It's draining the very energy you need to do the high-value work in the first place.
And the sources point to three specific areas where this just gets in the way of growth. It makes the business harder to manage day to day,
right?
Harder to plan for the future. And then as a result, it makes any kind of sustainable, non-stressful growth almost impossible.
You've essentially built yourself a very profitable, very stressful prison.
Yeah.
And this brings us to what I think is the most liberating sentence in all the source material. It's this explicit statement that just breaks that cycle of self-blame.
What's that?
It's not because you lack ability. That is so crucial because consultants, they so often think, oh, if I just get better at feasibility studies or if I just land that one massive client, the rest will sort itself out. They see the operations part as secondary.
Well, and I think they fall into that trap because high ability can cover up the problems, at least for a while.
How so?
If you're brilliant, you can manually fix a messy invoice in an hour. You can pull an all-nighter and customize a super complex proposal.
Yeah.
Your talent basically acts as a mask for the systemic rot underneath.
It's the perfect mask. You assume your ability is this tide that will lift all boats, even the leaky, chaotic operational one. But ability is about the output. It's the skill you sell. Operational ease is about the delivery mechanism, and the two are not the same thing at all.
Your core competence isn't a substitute for infrastructure.
Not at all. And that brings us right to the core diagnosis. This fundamental split between building a business around effort versus building it around systems.
So let's define that.
Yeah,
What does an effort-based model really look like?
It means your consultancy succeeds solely because you are constantly personally intervening. You're relying on your individual capacity, on long hours, on personal heroics, really. You have to be willing to manually fix every single mistake, every client whim, every admin hiccup.
It's hero mode all the time, as the source material puts it.
Exactly. And it is fundamentally completely unsustainable.
Let's go back to that analogy we talked about, the hand-drawn map versus a GPS. The hand-drawn map needs constant, intense focus. You're always recalculating. Every time a road is closed, you have to stop, pull over, and figure it out from scratch. Now, apply that to a complex QS project, like managing tenders for a huge commercial building.
Okay. In the effort model, that means you're manually tracking every bidder's email revision. You're manually copying and pasting changes into a spreadsheet. You're manually updating risk profiles in a Word doc, and then you're handcrafting every single update to the client.
You are the central processing unit.
You're it. The second you get sick or just have an off week, the whole process either grinds to a halt or, even worse, errors start creeping in that could cost millions.
And the system-based alternative is the GPS. The information is templated, the process is defined. You're maybe using a specific project management tool configured for tender management. The system calculates the route for you.
Right. And when a disruption happens, say a contractor submits a late bid, the system flags it. It captures the data in a standard way. It might even send a templated follow-up email without needing your immediate full attention.
It's an operational autopilot.
That's the key. The system handles 80% of the routine administrative stuff. So the high-value consultant, the six-figure freelancer, only spends their precious time on the 20% that requires their unique commercial judgment.
So they're analyzing the strategic risk, negotiating complex terms, advising the client on big-picture financial decisions.
Yes, not chasing down a missing document.
But I have to challenge this a bit because I know a lot of successful specialists would argue that their competitive edge is that bespoke, that effort-based, highly customized service. They'd say systems dehumanize the work.
That is such a common and seductive argument because it makes the expert feel indispensable, but it confuses structure with the final outcome.
Okay.
The long-term cost of that effort model is huge. It's twofold: exhaustion and an inability to scale. Burnout is basically inevitable. But even before you burn out, you hit a ceiling, a hard ceiling.
You just run out of hours in the day.
Exactly. How can one person, even a brilliant one, handle 10 truly bespoke manual projects at the same time without the quality dropping off a cliff? They can't.
They hit the wall of personal capacity.
Precisely. So to grow, you either hire more people to manage more chaos, which is a recipe for disaster, or you just accept that your income is capped by the number of hours you can physically work. The systemless model traps you in that direct trade of time for money.
Which is the very thing most high-level freelancers wanted to escape when they left the corporate world.
They just traded one boss for another, and the new boss is their own disorganized business.
Okay, let's unpack this in excruciating detail. If the diagnosis is this reliance on manual effort, what does that actually feel like day to day? Let's illustrate the specific, frustrating consequences that turn a great business into just chaotic survival.
The material really breaks down into three major symptoms, and they all come from a lack of repeatable, documented structure. We're talking about mental bandwidth just being eaten up by unnecessary repetition.
Okay, let's start with symptom one, the drag of repetition. This is where the manual approach just steals your time, right? Right. It directly hits the bottom line.
Immediately, and it shows up in two critical ways. First, every proposal takes too long.
Ugh, yes.
Think about it. An inquiry comes in. If you don't have a template, you're starting from scratch every time. You're doing high-level copywriting, strategic positioning, legal risk assessment, scope definition, formatting.
Let's say that takes what, 8 hours?
Yeah.
That's 8 hours of non-billable time just to bid on a project.
Yeah.
If you're charging $400 an hour, that's over $3,000 in opportunity cost just to write a document.
And a document that might not even close. And what's crucial is that time isn't spent focusing on the client's actual problem. It's spent on documentation. The consultant with a system, however, has a template. 85% of it is standardized legal terms, process phases, standard rates.
So they spend those 8 hours just tailoring the 15% that needs their unique insight.
Which means the quality of that insight is way higher, and they get it done in, say, 2 hours instead of 8. It's a massive shift.
And the second part of the symptom is operational repetition, the feeling that every project feels like starting from scratch. This must be especially bad for specialists like QS professionals.
Oh, absolutely. This shows a complete lack of repeatable delivery steps. I mean, think about the core stages of QS work. Preparing bills of quantities, interim valuations, final accounts. These have fundamentally similar phases, whether it's a house or a skyscraper.
But if you don't have a documented process?
You're reinventing the roadmap every single time. You're using huge amounts of brain power just trying to remember the steps instead of applying your expertise to the project's unique challenges.
Can you give us a really concrete QS example of that failure?
Sure. Let's say a consultant needs to generate a baseline cost plan. They need specific data from the client. Site surveys, architect's drawings, budget constraints, and so on. In the effort model, they manually ask for these things in an email, maybe a few emails. Things get missed.
It's slow, it's messy.
It's very messy. In the system model, they have a standardized discovery phase input checklist. It gets sent automatically during onboarding. That one simple structure prevents all that back and forth, and, more importantly, it stops the mental fatigue of trying to remember, wait, did I ask this client for the structural drawings, or was that the other project?
That mental load is the real hidden cost.
It's structural failure disguised as work stress.
Okay, that makes total sense. Let's move to symptom 2. Client-driven chaos. The source material has a perfect phrase for this. Every client wants something different.
This is a huge mindset shift. When a consultant doesn't have a defined service structure or clear boundaries, they default to being infinitely flexible. They see it as a virtue, being responsive.
But in practice, it just means the client dictates the entire process.
Entirely. The client texts you with urgent changes at 9 p.m. They demand a meeting on a Saturday. They insist on sending you data in some bizarre format that breaks all your spreadsheets.
So you're constantly reacting to their immediate undefined needs instead of guiding them through your proven process.
Yes.
That sounds like the absolute definition of scope creep.
It's the root of all scope creep. The edges of the project blur instantly. If a QS consultant agrees to an ad hoc cost review without defining how many reviews or how deep they go, a 10-hour job can easily become a 25-hour job, and your profit just vanishes.
And because the effort-based freelancer relies on their ability to just push harder, they feel like they have to absorb that extra work. It's like, I have to do this to keep the client happy.
When really they're just training the client to disrespect their time and their process. A system is the container for the relationship. Without that container, the scope just expands to fill all available effort. It's like a gas.
That's a great way to put it, which falls right into symptom 3, reactive versus strategic weeks.
Yes. If you're constantly dealing with all this custom proposals, manual project management, client chaos, your calendar is no longer your own.
There's a huge contrast there, right? A strategic week is proactive. You have time blocked out for high-leverage stuff research, business development, improving your skills.
Whereas a reactive week, which is the hallmark of the effort trap, is just spent putting out fires, chasing overdue documents, responding to urgent emails that aren't urgent, wrestling with deliverables because you didn't have a template.
In the effort model, you're not directing the business. You're just a passenger. You show up Monday morning and you're already behind, just overwhelmed by the sheer volume of manual admin that needs your personal touch.
And that leads us to that really brutal conclusion from the source material. You're not running a consultancy. You're surviving one. And it's exhausting.
It's just not sustainable no matter how much you're earning.
Exactly. And this is the anchor truth of the whole discussion. A consultancy becomes easier when you remove friction, not when you push harder.
Friction removal, not effort multiplication.
That's the key. And the friction comes from ambiguity, from repetition, from undefined boundaries. The systems are designed to eliminate that friction so that the actual expertise, the thing clients pay for, can operate at peak efficiency.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the chaos. Now let's get to the prescription. If systems are the cure, what specific tools, what specific boundaries does a six-figure freelancer need to build to get that control back?
This is where we move from philosophy to architecture. This is the practical how-to. The source material gives us a really clear blueprint with 7 specific components.
Okay, let's start with the first 2. They're about standardizing the sales process. Proposal templates and pricing frameworks. Why start with sales?
Because it's the very first place a consultant's time gets wasted, and it's often wasted for free. We talked about proposal templates, but beyond just speed, they're about quality control. For a QS consultant, that template has to include standardized sections for the scope of services.
So it's crystal clear what's included and what's not.
Precisely. It needs to differentiate between, say, initial cost planning and full tender management. It needs standard legal terms, payment schedules, and critically, a list of what the client is responsible for providing.
That templated scope confirmation, that's huge. It forces the client to agree in writing to the boundaries of the project before it even starts.
It's your first line of defense against scope creep. If the client later tries to add contract negotiation, you can just point back to the signed proposal where that was listed as an optional extra. The template is an enforceable shield for your time.
And pairing with that is the pricing framework.
Mm.
This is a big hurdle for a lot of freelancers. They feel like their unique value demands a unique price every single time.
That bespoke pricing habit is a profitability killer. It forces you into this emotional, mental negotiation with yourself and the client every single time. A clear framework, whether it's tiered packages like bronze, silver, gold, or modular pricing, it just removes all that friction.
So instead of a blank page, you have options. Like phase A costs this much, phase B costs that much.
Exactly. Or you have standardized day rates with very clear definitions of what a day includes. It solidifies your value and makes the decision-making process for the client so much faster.
But let me push back a little. If I have a standard framework, don't I risk losing that massive one-of-a-kind whale client who expects a totally custom approach?
That's a fair question and a common fear. But systems are meant to accommodate exceptions, not outlaw them. The framework is your baseline. It's your anchor. Even for that whale client, you're not starting from a blank slate.
So you use the framework to build the custom quote.
Use the modular pricing from your framework to rapidly assemble the necessary components. You can justify the comprehensive price based on clearly defined, pre-validated service modules. The conversation shifts from you arguing about your value to you simply discussing the quantity of modules needed. It says, this is how excellence is structured and priced.
I see. It turns complex, bespoke work into a structured assembly. Okay, let's move into the core operations. Components 3 and 4. Onboarding checklists and repeatable delivery steps.
Right. This is where we stop reinventing the wheel on every project. The onboarding checklist deals with that messy transition from closing the sale to actually starting the work.
Which is where so many things can go wrong.
So many. For a QS consultant, this checklist needs to be exhaustive. It covers things like establishing the primary contact person, confirming the capital expenditure limits, making sure insurances are in place, agreeing on the format for all documents.
And setting up shared project folders in a standard way so everything is in the right place from day one.
Yes. The benefit isn't just about being organized, it's about managing expectations. It transfers responsibility to the client to provide what's needed before you even start the clock on billable work.
So you're not chasing basic info for 2 weeks.
You can just point to the checklist and say, we begin once all items here are complete. It's professional, it's consistent, and it minimizes risk right from the start.
And component 4, repeatable delivery steps. This sounds like the absolute backbone of the whole system.
It is. It directly solves the every project feels like starting from scratch problem. It's about breaking down your complex work into standardized, documented phases and sub-steps.
So for cost estimation, phase 1 might be data aggregation, and then you have specific steps under that, like review schedule of rates, generate risk matrix using template 3.1, and so on.
Exactly that level of detail. It might sound excessive, but it's what allows you to escape relying on your memory and willpower.
It's the difference between a craft and a process.
It is. Because you've defined that step, you can now measure how long it takes. You can delegate it. You can optimize it. It ensures you, the expert, are only spending your brainpower on the unique commercial insights, not on managing the workflow.
Okay, component 5, automation where possible. This has to be the biggest time saver of them all.
If it's set up right, absolutely. Automation is about using technology to get rid of those soul-crushing manual steps. For a QS consultant, maybe it's automating the weekly status report, pulling data from your project software into a client-facing dashboard.
Or automated invoicing when a project phase is marked complete.
Or automated calendar booking links that prevent all the back and forth for scheduling meetings. If you're spending 90 minutes every Monday morning manually compiling status reports, that is pure friction. Automate that, and you get 90 minutes of high-value time back every single week, forever.
It's the ultimate time multiplier.
You invest the time once to set it up, and it pays you back indefinitely. Plus, machines don't make tired mistakes at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, components 6 and 7, which are all about the boundaries needed to stay sane, client boundaries, and a clear service structure.
These are often the hardest to enforce, but they are absolutely critical. Client boundaries means explicitly defining how and when you work. It's not just I work 9 to 5, it's defining communication channels.
All urgent requests must come through the project portal, not my personal cell phone.
Exactly. Or defining response times. I guarantee a 24-hour response to non-urgent emails. Defining meeting rules. All status meetings are capped at 30 minutes and require an agenda.
Because if you don't set the boundaries, the client will set them for you, and it will usually be in a way that serves their convenience, not your focus.
100%. And that lack of boundaries is what creates those reactive weeks. And this works hand in hand with component 7, a clear service structure. This is about moving from offering a vague service like cost advice to offering structured packaged services.
So give us a concrete example for a QS consultant.
Instead of saying, I do tender management, you offer the fixed scope tender management package, and you define it. Includes pre-tender estimates, bidder qualification using our vetting checklist, and a final recommendation report. Excludes direct negotiation with subcontractors.
So it's fixed scope, fixed price. It forces clarity.
It makes your value crystal clear to the market, and it simplifies your internal operations because now you only need to build systems for the specific services you actually offer.
It cuts down on that every client wants something different problem.
Drastically. You're presenting them with structured, predictable choices. And the key benefit that unites all 7 of these systems is this. Clients respect your process. Respect is built on definition and predictability. When a client sees a well-oiled machine, they trust it.
So the upfront work to build these 7 systems, the templates, the frameworks, the checklists, all of it, it's not trivial. But the payoff seems transformative. Let's synthesize this. What does this shift from the effort model to the system model really mean for a 6-figure freelancer's bottom line and, just as importantly, their quality of life?
Well, the outcomes fundamentally reverse that toxic relationship the consultant has with their time. They go from being a highly paid employee of their own chaos to being a strategic director of a predictable business.
Okay, so first let's talk about predictability and time. You move from that constant reactive scramble to actual strategic forecasting.
Yeah, the sources put it perfectly. Your workload becomes predictable, and your time becomes your own. When you have repeatable steps, you know exactly how long things take. You're not guessing anymore. If phase 2 of a cost review always takes 40 hours in your system, you can trust that estimate.
Which means you're not leaving this massive buffer for chaos that might or might not happen.
Right. And that confidence lets you do real forecasting. You know exactly how much capacity you have next month. You can confidently take on a new client, or just as critically, you can confidently block out 2 weeks for a vacation and know the business won't implode.
And this frees you up to do the actual strategic planning, the very thing you couldn't do when the business felt harder to plan in the effort trap.
Exactly. Your expertise is now focused outward on strategy and growth, instead of inward, constantly patching leaks in a sinking boat.
Okay, second big benefit, clarity of value. How did these standardized systems actually impact the perception of your worth and your ability to charge a premium?
They force you to articulate and package your value, which leads to that outcome. Your value becomes clearer. We often see that those super customized, bespoke proposals, while they're meant to be impressive, they often just bury the real value in complexity.
Right.
When you present a clear, structured service package, you're putting a specific, validated price tag on a defined outcome.
The conversation with the client then shifts from, why are you so expensive, to, okay, which of these defined high-value outcomes do I want to buy?
That's it. The clarity benefits everyone. And when your value is that clear and your process is that defined, it's exponentially easier to defend your pricing. The system itself becomes proof of the value. The focus moves from questioning your effort to being confident in the outcome.
It just communicates that you're running a mature professional enterprise, not just selling your hours like a gig worker. This all brings us back to that final reversal. The realization that the core problem for so many of these high-achieving freelancers was never their commercial skill. They had that in abundance.
Absolutely. The missing piece was structural. These exceptional professionals, they're like the Ferrari of consultants, all the engine power you could ever want. But they were missing the chassis, the transmission, the steering wheel, the predictable systems needed to actually apply that power efficiently.
They were trying to race a Ferrari engine that was bolted onto a rickety wooden wagon.
That's a perfect image for it. And we should say that core thesis from the source material one last time, because it's just such a powerful summary.
Go for it.
Your commercial skill isn't the problem. Your missing systems are.
And that's the ultimate reframe, isn't it?
It is. These systems aren't just boring administrative overhead. They're the necessary foundation that allows an exceptional specialist to actually scale their impact, maximize their profit, and maintain that peak performance without burning out. They are the scaffolding that protects the very valuable expertise that they sell.
This has been such a critical analysis, really focused on moving past that that seductive but ultimately exhausting effort-based
Yeah.
mindset.
And toward the systems-based approach, which is really the only path to sustainable growth and control for six-figure freelancers.
We've covered the whole spectrum, really. We've talked about that pivot from effort to standardized systems. We identified those chaotic symptoms.
The endless project customization, the reactive weeks, the burnout.
And most importantly, we detail that 7-part blueprint for building control. The proposal templates, the pricing frameworks, onboarding checklists, repeatable steps, automation, client boundaries, and a clear service structure.
All the tools you need.
So if you're listening and you're operating at a really high level, but you still feel that constant grind, remember, the solution isn't to just try harder. It's not about more hours. Gaining control comes from making deliberate structural changes that define and protect your most valuable assets, your focus and your time.
And that leads us to a final, maybe provocative thought for every high performer listening right now. If time is truly your most valuable asset, and your current success is built solely on manually pushing your expertise through a business with no systems, how much of your potential capacity is currently trapped?
Trapped inside that daily administrative friction.
Exactly. Your ability to earn significantly more, to innovate in your field, or to just rest and recover, how much of it is being consumed by tasks that a system could handle? What is the true long-term commercial cost of that hidden friction? It's a cost that's absolutely worth calculating and then eliminating.